Happy Tuesday night, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Pitstop Pals, all part of the Nielsen Media Coolbet Network. For all of your F1 betting needs, you can visit our partners over at coolbet.com. Thanksgiving weekend, we had a chance to consume the race and then spend some time with our families, which is why we've got a Tuesday episode this week. We got lots to get to, and what an interesting. I mean, the scheduling itself, Gager, was not overly ideal, but then you get the delay, and I was out in Winnipeg, so I was even an hour ahead, and we're just sitting there waiting for this race. And when it started, and you saw all the spray, which I don't know how those guys drive that fast and that type of spray, which I guess they didn't in the end. But you see the start of that race, and I have to say, I was very giddy. I was very excited when they got that race going and seeing the start. And then obviously they red flagged it for a good chunk of time, which was a little bit of a buzzkill. But just your thoughts on the start of this race, buddy.
I was excited for the time, like a Saturday night race.
Yeah.
Like that seemed pretty cool. But like you said, the spray, I'm like, oh my gosh, something weird is going to happen here, because we got to see the full wets and to see the stream that pulls out there. And one of the commentators saying, like, the water displacement is like 80 liters per second.
Yeah, did you hear that too? I heard that too. I think he said 60. I think he said 60 liters per second.
So those,
which is why the dry line comes out, right? Eventually,
yeah,
it's supposed to.
Yeah. So you're kind of waiting for it, but to be putting up, what do they say, bathtubs of water out every second, that's just crazy. It must be like a waterfall, but driving behind guys. But again, it was tough. I couldn't. I tried as long as I could to stick with it, and eventually, fell asleep on the couch. Our good friend Gene Principe obviously heard me this morning, Dusty, and gave me crap for falling asleep during an F1 race.
Well, I mean, that was essentially, well, not middle of the night, but it was super late. And I texted you. It was like just after 1. I thought they were going to bring it back. You texted me like, here we go. And I had the F1 TV on, and I was doing some other stuff. And then when I saw them, when they're like, it's going to be pushed back more, I was like, not tonight. I got to do it. So then first thing I did when I got up, and I had to get up, I think my alarm went off at like 5:15 to get to the airport. I checked it out, and you know how you wake up. I woke up and I was just like, oh, what's going on? I grabbed my phone and I went to look at it, and I was like, no spoilers. Like I avoided Twitter. And then I hopped on, and for a shortened, timed, what was it? How long did they end up racing? It was
43 or 44 minutes, something like that.
It was a solid 43 minutes, buddy.
I enjoyed it. I mean, we'll get to it, but there were 2 real epic battles that we got to watch in that race, and seeing with Lewis and Esteban going at it, and Carlos and Charles go and with Max, and it was I liked it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen Max been pressed a little bit more, but overall, I thought it was a pretty entertaining race. And we'll kind of dive into that here with the Pitstop Pals Podium, brought to you by Mobile One and Mr. Lube. Mobile One doesn't just keep your vehicle running; it keeps your engine running like new. You can get your synthetic oil change completed at Mr. Lube same day. Oil change and tire service, no appointment necessary. Get your Mobile One oil at Mr. Lube. Top spot on the podium. We do have to talk about Max locking up his back-to-back second title in a little bit of undramatic, awkward fashion at the end, but certainly great dramatics at the beginning of this race. What a move by him early in the race.
That's what we talked about before, what I texted you. And I know the battle between Max and Charles wasn't long, but it was that beginning where Max showed his dominance and the reason why he's 2-time F1 champion. And you saw it right at the first corner, Dusty, where if Charles doesn't get on the brakes as quick as he did, he had a chance to take a different racing line and kind of
100%
get ahead of Max, because he was ahead of him.
He had him.
And you just saw, if you watch it again, watch Max just go cruising by him and just ripping around the corner. And then it was game over from then and there on, right? And, I was thinking about it too, just, the way Max won last year with all the controversy and stuff. And I mean, even him winning the championship this year, not anyone really knowing if he won or not.
Awkward.
So it's kind of weird, but this solidifies him as one of the great F1 drivers, I think, of all time. Just in the fashion that he did it. He's repeated as champion. I think it can, I mean, we always knew Max was a special driver, but it really just solidifies doing it with 4 races to go this year.
I thought that one move, not even a move essentially, but the first corner you just talked about kind of summarized the difference between Max Verstappen and everybody else. I honestly believe, I mean, outside of maybe peak moments last year between Lewis and Max, where Lewis just would not have given him that corner. Lewis would have driven him off the track last year in that situation. But I think the majority of the other drivers on the circuit right now would have braked where Leclerc braked. But you see them go along, you're like, oh, Leclerc's got him. And then all of a sudden it's just like, boom, gone. You're like, oh, Leclerc put on the brakes and Verstappen didn't. And that was essentially the difference in the race. So, I mean, I know the car obviously is excellent, maybe a little too excellent. We'll get to that a little bit later on. But his fearlessness when it comes to driving, I think, has to be respected and appreciated for sure.
Oh, go back and hit the helmet cam and watch him when it starts in the middle of the pack. Like, it's a joke how bad he makes other drivers look with his aggressiveness and willingness to put his nose into that corner and taking that line. He cuts through the field like butter. He doesn't have to finish on pole. I just think it's the perfect meld for him with car and driver, Dusty. It's an amazing job what he's been able to do. But I mean, and really, Red Bull's an unbelievable team, I think, too. Yeah. Like, you watch the race, and one of the great battles, I think, was Charles and Checo battling for second, and Checo's he's the ultimate team driver. You saw what he did last year with Lewis Hamilton holding him up in the last race for that length of time for Max to catch up. And then this year, there was a chance for Max to win the championship. And I think by Checo just putting so much pressure on Charles, those last 10 minutes of the race, causes him on the last lap to make a mistake, takes a 5-second penalty, and puts him behind, and really gives Max the championship. Not that it wouldn't have happened before.
Yeah, it was going to happen anyway, right?
It's solidified it and I think they're just the best. You have to say they're the best team in F1 right now, and Checo's. I think he's a huge part of that.
They're putting together, outside of Checo, and I think the respect is well deserved. But, I mean, this now would be the most wins all time in a season. Like, that's within Max Verstappen's grasp. That's something that you would certainly think they're going to gun for, and they can walk away, and everything that Lewis Hamilton's accomplished and stuff doesn't mean much when Max has the greatest season of all time. So that's an interesting to look at as we head towards the United States Grand Prix, which is coming up on October 23rd. I got to plug in my computer. Oh, Gager's computer's about to die. This is a mad race. Lights out, Gager. Plug in your computer. That would sting a little bit. He made it back. Gager, I got you on the clock at 2.4 seconds for that pit stop. Well done.
It's quick.
All right, let's get to the second spot on the podium from the Japanese Grand Prix. And once again, Pitstop Pals Podium brought to you by Mobile One and Mr. Lube. And, if you're just joining us and watching or listening to the Pitstop Pals for the first time, the podium isn't always just guys who finish first, second, third. It's kind of the storylines that we like coming out of this. And, I guess there's a few things to talk about here with Pierre Gasly and Alpine. And, Gager, let's just start with Alpine in general. I mean, they've gone, this past race is a really good example of it, but they've gone from a car that you're like, ooh, Alpine, McLaren, what's going to happen there? And now Alpine's up there competing with, let's just move them up to that Mercedes tier right now. So, I mean, really, no matter what happens at this point, I think you got to consider this season a success for Alpine, don't you?
Massive success. And I mean, Fernando Alonso with resurrecting his career and having an unbelievable season where, if you really, he didn't have many he didn't make any mistakes. It all came down to reliability a lot with that car, and we're still talking about how good that car is, right? And I think you really saw it with the battle between Esteban and
Yep.
Lewis during that race, where you would think like Lewis he was getting closer and closer, and you'd think on that straightaway that's where, even though there's no DRS enabled at that point, but you'd think he'd be able to overtake or at least get upside, and he couldn't. He wasn't catching that Alpine car. It was awesome. It's funny. They've really kind of put themselves they've moved out of that middle of the pack and joined the top cars for sure. And because when they're battling with Mercedes, depending on the track, I guess a little bit, but I would give the edge to that Alpine because of that straight line speed. And their drivers are driving really well too. You gotta give it to them. But yeah, like I like that, Dusty, that they're definitely competing with the top teams.
Esteban Ocon's been right around it for a lot of the season, right? He's in those 7, 8, 9, 10 spots a lot of the year. Alonso now coming on as well makes a huge difference for that team right now. Now on top of it, let's tie it in, Pierre Gasly. He's headed there, and we'll get to that team overall in general for next season. But Pierre Gasly, he's trying to catch up to the rest of the pack. You see the image through I've watched like a wider shot of it, and it doesn't look as bad as it does from down in the cockpit, but still dangerous as all hell, considering somebody lost their life running into a tractor on this track in 2013. Yeah. Like, I think it's got to be handled better by everybody in that situation, Gager. Considering the conditions, it made no sense.
No, I don't. The technology's too good to have something like that happen now, right? Like, everything's got that can never ever happen again. And we saw, like, we didn't see it because of the spray, right? It had to be you kind of had to slow it down to even have a look and see what happened there. But I didn't know. I was rewinding because Gasly was losing it in the pits after, and you can see why. Like, it would have been game over if he would have lost control and hit that tractor. That's just completely unacceptable. And like you said, for it to happen twice at the same place, like, come on, guys, let's get the stuff together.
Like, you think of all the places you're like, hey, that can never happen again. It would have to be this one, and they still. I don't know. It's a dangerous situation. Got to be handled better by everybody. And I'm telling you, I'm not going to say I sit here and I miss Mikey. No, Mikey, but some of the new decisions this year have not been past with flying colors here either. Really, it's been right. Like, I don't think all of a sudden watching these races this year, I'm like, wow, these race directors are doing a hell of a lot better job. I mean, maybe it's because they haven't been noticeable much, but there's a few times I've been like, what the hell are these guys thinking?
Well, and I mean, you look at the penalty they give Charles, like, and they make the decision like that, whereas all these other decisions that they're making are taking forever, and we're doing this. It just it seems not. I don't know. Is the Ferrari team doing the little the decision making too? Because it seems kind of odd sometimes with what's going on with there. They need to streamline their decisions a little bit quicker. We can get to it just with Aston Martin and Red Bull going over the spending cap.
Yeah,
like it and
this is the long drawn out process. Like, you're either over it or you're not, right? Like, it's that simple.
Yeah. And Martin Brundle was talking in an interview and saying that they really have to just like set it in stone. What if you go over, and this is the criteria? These are the penalties that are going to happen. Because right now they say, well, they say Red Bull spent too much on food, and now all the memes are showing Yuki.
I know. I saw that. I was like, come on.
Gasly eating like little finger sandwiches and stuff like that. So it's pretty funny. But the other one was obviously Mercedes is a little bit upset, and if they are that much over from last year, and being able to put more into their next year's car and getting ahead of other teams, that's a huge advantage. So I want to see what happens. Like I read another thing that they're going to say that the cap for Red Bull is going to be lower because they've gone over in years past. So it'll be interesting to see if they take away points. I mean, how that would be crazy to see if they make a decision all of a sudden Max hasn't won the championship and Charles a little bit closer and could possibly overtake him in the last four.
That'd make things pretty
crossed.
dramatic. Yeah, that would make things pretty dramatic.
I kind of have my fingers crossed for that one. I won't lie to you, Dusty. That would be great. But yeah, just just a little bit disorganized for me with the decision making from the FIA up to this.
Let's wrap up with this Alpine here on this second stop on the podium, and just your thoughts on what they put together for next year, buddy. What do you think of that team?
So I like it. I think it's cool to have two French drivers on the same team. Both, like, a lot of times you see that kind of more experienced guy with a young guy. These are two young guys battling it out. All the fans of Drive to Survive will be no strangers to when Pierre Gasly got the Red Bull seat, and I think it might have been a little bit too soon for him to get into that car, Dusty. Yeah. I think, yeah. Like he's a little bit more mature now. He's done well in that AlphaTauri.
It just seemed like Red Bull didn't have a plan for that seat, right? It's like, oh, we'll throw Gasly in there, and then they didn't really give him much of a shake.
No. I mean, he didn't do well too. A little bit was on him, but I'm excited to see this Alpine team because they have two really young competitive drivers, and for all sense of purpose, Gasly's a good driver, and really he's going to be, if Alpine keeps going the way they are, he's going to be in a lot better car. So I'm excited to see what he can do in a car with by all accounts is like the second, third fastest car on the straights on the circuit. So and to see the battle between countrymen, I think will be another thing
that'll be fun
to look at next year. It'll be great. It'll be great.
Who's the first driver on that team?
Oh gosh,
it's got to be the incumbent, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would have to give it to Esteban just because he's been there for a bit longer. But you never know.
Gasly could push him though.
Yeah, I think he'll really push him. It'll be really cool next year just in testing, because to see who has the faster times, and we always see how teams kind of start developing the car more towards the guy that's doing better and maybe design it a little bit more to his criteria than the other guy. So it'll be interesting to see that. And then of course with Yuki and Nick DeVries in AlphaTauri, two real younger guys and willing to battle it out. No one's better on the helmet cam radio than Yuki. He's great when he's telling them not to talk to him and stuff like that.
Well, Nick's a smooth talker. He's a smooth talker. Yeah. He's so good. He's 20 years away from being on a broadcast. So I think that's good. All right. It is the Mobile One Mr. Lube Pitstop Pals Podium. One more stop here, our third stop on the podium. And I guess a question about George Russell. When we talk about car designs that might not be working, what's going on with Russell down the stretch here, buddy?
Well, I just look at that battle for fourth in the drivers.
Yeah,
really interesting now, and I think George had that kind of solidified for so long. Now Lewis has come back a little bit, and Carlos has jumped up a lot over the last.
I'd take Carlos Sainz over George Russell the rest of the season.
Yeah. So right now it's Russell at 207. Carlos at 202, and Lewis is a little bit behind at 180, right? So that battle right there is going to be interesting.
It's not that far behind.
It's not that far behind, and Lewis trying to keep that streak alive of trying to win a race. I think it's good. I don't think he's going to do it, but that's another just kind of battle I'm looking at for till the end of the year here, Dusty, to see who can solidify that fourth place, because pardon the pun, but with George Russell, listening to him talk and stuff, the the wheels are kind of falling off his season here. I think the pressure's kind of getting to him.
Well, and he was so steady. I mean, he was just a steady diet of top fives. Didn't win anything, but was a steady diet of top fives. And I remember how many times we come on these episodes and said, well, another really boring fourth place finish for George Russell. Now it seems like maybe some of that, like maybe it was some good luck with the car in the early part, and maybe it's catching up to you right now if you're George Russell. So I would, man, you know, if Lewis can finish second and George finishes eighth and Carlos Sainz DNFs, which will likely happen with Ferrari again at some point, then all of a sudden, that's a really good battle down the stretch. And the battle for second place is still very much wide open.
Oh, it's 1 point. We got Sergio with 253, Charles at 252. So yeah, that's another one that'll be 4 more. Let's see. I have to go with Sergio just over the last few races of how he's doing and that masterful job in Singapore. That was
Singapore.
Was
it was great.
He was unreal, right? So, that'd be something for Red Bull too to finish 1-2 and win the constructors.
They want that.
I'm sure Horner wants that.
Has to. Absolutely has to. I'd want it too if I was in their situation. That's your Mobile One Mr. Lou Pitstop Pals Podium. We'll circle back around with a little trivia coming up here in just a second here on episode 21 of the Pitstop Pals. But Gager, what else you got on the old board over there for this episode?
Well, we talked a little bit, but it was the funniest thing about that whole race was Max going into the champion room, sitting in that massive chair and not really knowing if he won the championship or not. Like that was kind of fun. And he kind of got embarrassed. And I think he just went back into the other room to hang out with the guys because he felt like kind of an idiot if he hadn't have won. So that was kind of one thing I picked out that was a little bit funny. The Hamilton streak, of course. We've talked about that, but the one thing that's kind of sad, I think, is I was really hoping it kind of had a glimpse of hopes of Ricciardo doing well. These like he did well in Singapore.
He hasn't been brutal the last 2 races. Like he finished 1 spot behind Lando this week.
So unfortunately, I think his F1 time is done. I don't see him. I mean, there's only 1 seat left, I think, and that's with Haas, isn't it, at this point, Dusty? So
I think they were looking at a Magnussen extension anyway, right? They were looking at Rosenberg. And
I think he's already extended. Yeah. He's already gone for next year. And so, and I don't know. I think that going to Haas for Ricciardo at this point is, would you really want to go to that? Like you want to
I look at the question from the other side. For Haas, if you're Haas right now, do you think you're at the stage to go to Danny Ricciardo for your seat? I mean, your American team, he's got some of that American. I think he'd fit in well there if you want to kind of build him up around the States. But if you're not winning, I don't know if that's a good marriage for anybody, to be honest with you.
The only thing I could like for if I look at it from a pure team principle, if I'm team principle, I don't know if I'm leaning towards no, but then there's the marketability of Ricciardo. I think he's well liked. Like you said, it's a US based team. I think he could do a lot with Daniel in the US. He plays up I'm sure he'll be wearing a big belt buckle, cowboy boots, and a 10-gallon hat in the next race here. So it might be like we've seen Gunther sit in toy boats for advertisement, right? So he might be able to bring in a few more dollars that way, but they also had Nick Schumacher too, right? So that's
there's Schumacher. And Williams still has that seat. Latifi's seat is still open, isn't it?
Right, Latifi's seat. Yeah. So
I don't know if. Yeah, man. I got into being a Danny Rick guy at exactly the wrong time. You know, like since I started watching, he's won 1 race and it was great, but a little disappointing otherwise.
Yeah, we need the alternate universe to see what he would have done if he would have stayed with Renault. And I think that even they've said that Alpine car suited his driving style way more than the McLaren. So kind of a
I'm not sure the McLaren car suits anybody's driver style.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
like
yeah.
I viewed Lando as one of the, I coming in the seats, I kind of viewed him up there with Carlos Sainz and with Charles Leclerc. And he's not even in that conversation anymore, Gage. Like, there's been nothing accomplished in that McLaren car this year that would even remotely put him in that conversation, which is, it's got to be frustrating for him, man. He's got to be pissed.
Yeah, it comes across in his interviews about talking
Yeah.
about the car, and now next year he's going to have a little bit more pressure put on him from Piastri too, right? So that's another team that I'm looking forward to seeing, because Lando's basically been the guy for 2 years, right? So and with Piastri
A really changing
coming
of
in,
there's a big time changing of the guard here though, heading into next year, right? Like, you're losing some of the all-time greats and you're getting some of these younger guys who've been really hyped along the way. Like, that's exciting. I don't know what it means for anybody, pushing up against Red Bull or Ferrari or anything, but I think that's exciting. As much as, well, once again, Vettel and Alonso, since I started watching, have been at the tail end of their career. So I'm not sitting here getting emotional about Vettel and Alonso's glory days, because I just wasn't around for them. But so I guess maybe I'm ready to see some fresh blood and have some new guys to cheer for as I work into like season 3 of following Formula One.
yeah, no, I mean we're growing up now, Dusty. We're in the infancy of Formula One.
It's time to grow up.
Yeah, we're seeing the end of some greats, and you hear the praise of some of these drivers, and how, like, seeing people say, "Oh, this sport is dead to me without Sebastian Vettel in it," and I was like, "Really? I'll still keep watching."
Yeah,
but
yeah, it's just a different generation, right?
yeah, but I won't lie. I'm really excited to see some of these younger guys in the cars and start establishing, hopefully, their long careers of battling against Verstappen and Charles and Carlos. Like, I want to see 5 years of just battling for championships with these guys. I think F1's, they've done such a cool job with their TV and the Drive to Survive and the marketing of all the drivers, and to really build them up. Not that they weren't before, but that those personalities come through so much within these races and in between, that it's hard not to fall in love with the battles of these guys and see what happens. I'm fascinated by the F1 lore of these guys and how big they are. And I love when they're racing and they don't things aren't going well and it's just awful. Like, everything's just terrible. But when things are going good, it's all rainbows and sunshine.
Oh yeah, it's a roller coaster, buddy. There's no doubt about that. It is a season-long chicane. What can we say? All right, let's wrap up with a little trivia. Once again, all you have to do to answer the question, slide into my DMs on Twitter at NielsenTSN1260. Give me the correct answer. If you get it correct, you're going to a draw. And if your name is drawn out of the draw, you will win a gift certificate from Mr. Lube. That'll get you a premium synthetic oil change valued at almost $140. And you get one of our Mobile One racing hats from our partners at Mobile One and Mr. Lube. Get your Mobile One synthetic oil changed at Mr. Lube. And from the 2 different Mr. Lube locations I've been to, service is great. People are very friendly, and there's not a lot of that pressure where you get panicked into getting like 9 different things done, and your oil change ends up costing you $1,400. So that's it's a nice laid back experience. Let's just say that. All right, here's the question: how many current drivers on the grid today have won the Japanese Grand Prix? I have to go back, have to dig into this thing a little bit, but how many current active drivers have a championship at the Japanese Grand Prix? Slide into my DMs on Twitter. Long answers filling up my inbox, but track down the correct answer and slide into my DMs, and we'll put you in the draw for one of these and one of these. And I'm going to do an episode next week anyway. I hate going 2 weeks without an episode, buddy. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I got a fat stack of these GCs we got to give away. So.
Well, we'll at least we'll find out probably what the penalties are with Red Bull.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
And Aston Martin. So we'll have that.
Okay.
I mean, and now we'll get a local time zone race in a couple weeks. So that's good. That's good.
That started something special here in North America. So yeah,
I won't fall asleep.
Exactly. That's the last thing we want to get. All right, that's going to do it for another episode of the Pitstop Pals, part of the Nielsen Media Coolbet Network, with our partners at Coolbet. If you're looking to bet on Formula One, they've got you covered over there as well. If you've been watching on the live stream or archived on YouTube or whatever, make sure you subscribe to the podcast as well. Just search the Pitstop Pals on all of your podcasting platforms. Give us a sub. We'd appreciate it. And maybe we end up talking to you next week. Gage, we'll talk to you then, bud.
Awesome. Later.